Then we have the control plane protocol stack between the user equipment and the AMF. And we can see that the protocol stack is almost including the basic sublayers or the lower layers. And we have a new layer which is the NAS MM. So the NAS protocol for MM function is supporting many functions like registration management, connection management, and user plane connection and activation and deactivation. So the NAS MM or non-access stratum MM layer is supporting more other functions also, like the procedures that terminate at the AMF. Those procedures include handling of registration management and connection management, and also procedures with user equipment, including the NAS transport. Also providing a secure NAS signaling connection, integrity protection and ciphering between the user equipment and the AMF, including for transport of payload. For the control plane protocol stack between the user equipment and the SMF, we can see that the upper layer is the NAS SM, and below it in the user equipment we have the NAS MM layer, which is handling the SM signaling transmission and reception. And then we have the SM signaling message created and processed in the NAS SM layer in both user equipment and the SMF. The NAS MM layer is creating a NAS MM message, including security header and the NAS transport of SM signaling. Also additional information for the receiving of NAS MM to drive how and where to forward the SM signaling message. The NAS SM is supporting, as we mentioned, handling of session management between the user equipment and the SMF. And it supports also the user plane BDU session establishment, modification, and release. And it is transferred via the AMF and transparent, of course, to the AMF. You should note also that the NAS MM layer is handling the SM or session management signaling. So it is performing it in two cases. For transmission of SM signaling, the NAS MM layer is creating the NAS MM message, including security header and the NAS transport of SM signaling. And the other case, in case of reception of SM or session management signaling, so it is responsible for receiving of the NAS MM and processing the NAS MM part of the message, which means that it is performing integrity check and interprets the additional information to drive how and where to drive the SM signaling message. We will end this section by explaining the protocol stack for the service-based architecture of the 5G core network. So the control plane network functions in the 5G core are based on service-based architecture, as we mentioned before. And the service-based interface is representing how the set of services is provided or exposed by a given network function. All the interfaces between network functions in the control plane are using the protocol stack, which is shown on the left. The service-based interfaces protocol stack is using HTTP2 protocol with JSON as the application layer protocol. And for the security protection at the transport layer, all 3GPP network functions shall support TLS. The mechanism is performed over the SPI interface or service-based interface for different network functions of the control plane are as following. We have either network function service registration and deregistration to make the network function aware of the available network functions and the supported services around it. Also, network function service discovery, which is enabling the network function service to discover the other network function services instances, which is providing the expected service. And finally, the interface of service-based interface is used for service authorization to ensure that the network function service consumer is authorized to access the network function service provided. So here, all the network functions are communicating over service-based architecture. For example, we have the SMF is using the N SMF for any communication with any other network function in the control plane, and all the messages transferred to the SMF will be using the same protocol stack architecture, which is shown on the left, using the HTTP and over the JSON application. And of course, the 3GPP, as we mentioned, should support the TLS for security reasons. By ending this section, we have finalized and closed all the details of 5G network related to the different protocol stacks, either it is user plane protocol stack or control plane protocol stack, and finally we closed it with the protocol stack used for the service-based architecture. And here, a list of the references that you can try to visit in case you need to get more information and more details about the different topics that we are discussing throughout the course.